Welcome to Chads by Christ, the show about Catholic lads living Catholic lives. I'm Charlie,
I'm Deshaun.
and today we have a special guest. I'd like to introduce our friend Joseph.
Hey.
Hey, Joe. Joe is another friend of ours from our youth ministry, and as is tradition in our youth ministry and on the show, we will get you to say, well, we've spoiled your name. Your name's Joseph, but we'll get you to do the 3 interesting things about yourself.
Yep. Well, I'm a registered support worker. My favorite video game series is The Legend of Zelda, and my birthday is Christmas Day.
Wow. Well, 3, 2, 1. Hi, Joseph. Joseph. Oops. How do you prefer to be called? Joe or Joseph?
I mean, when I was a lot younger, I always said Joe, but for some reason I do like Joseph, but at this point I don't really mind now, whatever people feel like saying.
Okay. Bit of neither or. Now, Joe, when I asked you to come on the show, you suggested a topic, and that topic didn't come up in your 3 interesting things, so would you like to let us and the audience know what we're going to be talking about today?
Well, I guess I figured I could maybe give a bit of a perspective of being a neurodivergent Catholic, as someone who has had to sort of undergo having autism for basically most of my life.
What is?
Yeah, go on, Dave.
Sorry, Charlie. I was going to ask, what is neurodivergent? Like, I've heard this term thrown around, but I don't think maybe I don't fully understand what it means. Like, what does it mean? Like to be what does neurodivergence mean?
Well, so I guess the term neurotypical, which is, I think that's kind of the term that people use these days to describe someone who's considered, normal. But then I guess to be sort of not sort to make it sound, I guess, appropriate or not without in a non-discriminative way. I think neurodivergent is meant to be sort of an individual or group of people who sort of who sort of have some type of personality condition or even physical condition that sort of impacts their ability. I think in society, they sort of it can be just sort of people who have those sort of
Tendencies?
What was that? Sorry.
Tendencies?
Yeah, that's a good word. Tendencies.
Okay.
Cool. So I guess the obvious starting point, even though it's a bit broad, is could you tell us a bit about your experience of neurodivergency in particular? Because it sounds like there are different types, and no one condition is exactly the same. If that makes sense.
Yep. So I have what is known as ASD, or autism spectrum disorder. I was diagnosed when I was about 4 years old. I know when I was about 5, I attended speech therapy because from what my sort of parents have told me, I didn't really talk a lot as a kid. I think even from small memories, I would sort of just I would say random things that wouldn't make sense, like make up my own sentences and things, and would probably just I do sort of remember walking around my backyard sometimes and just saying things that didn't make sense. And then again, didn't really communicate a lot. I was very quiet, and so I was held back a year at kindergarten, and did speech therapy from then until I was about maybe 9 years old. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. That was the early phase of it, at least.
Yep.
Yeah. And has your experience with it sort of changed as you grew older? I guess you have to sort of tell us as you moved into high school, adulthood, yeah, like sort of how did it work? Like how did you, sort of handle it? Like was it difficult?
Yeah, well, I know I attended some, I guess, sort of events you could say for all neurodivergence that my parents sort of set me up with. At high
Mhm.
school, there was this thing called the I Can program, which was, they had, I would say they had good intentions, but the problem with stuff like that was you have all the LGBT, and they have people that are homosexual, lesbians, and that was for me. It was that was always sort of a struggle because even because it might sound a bit odd, but for some reason I would say that because I'm through those I met a few other people that were autistic, and I felt just as isolated, I think, from people that were similar to me, right, and more so than I guess neurotypical people at school. But I guess, and I even at high school, I've always sort of struggled with socializing a bit, but in saying that, I've always kept like the same group of friends since primary school most of my life. So I think I went a bit of a ramble there. Sorry.
No, no.
Oh, you're good.
Oh,
This show is all about rambling. Do not stress. I wanted to. You raised an interesting point about how, like, all those autistic, neurodivergent spaces have a lot of LGBTQ plus influence, and like
Yeah.
I've noticed that, like, just in the internet a lot, like, there's a lot of overlap between those two,
mm,
like, what's the word, communities.
Yeah.
And so yeah, you mentioned like you felt isolated because you're Catholic and you're pretty strong, pretty devout Catholic at that. Um, so like, how do you like navigate something like that? You know, like this space that's meant to be safe, or like yeah, this space that's meant to be like a place for you, turns out it
mm.
isn't. You know, um,
Yeah.
like that's a bit of a rough question, I know, but
Yeah. That's
yeah.
okay. Well, I guess I've always tried in those sort of circumstances. I think with sort of the other people around, like people my age, my peers, they're always the ones I felt more isolated from. Like I kind of assumed that if anyone was gonna be more judgmental and maybe a bit less understanding, it was probably going to be people in my peer group. But I even when approaching some of the adults who run those sort of organizations, they were they were probably I guess respectable, I would say, towards it. But again, I've it's very still trying to think of how I can sort of put that one together. But I think another way is because it wasn't just about being different in terms of being Catholic and stuff. It's also my opinion of how people should treat their autism. I think again, if there were people listening to this, they would find it a bit controversial. I think because in the communities they talked about embracing your autism, and even now I've kind of seen autism as something to be conquered instead of embraced. And I think that opinion is another reason why I think I felt a little more isolated from others because they definitely treat it as something that it's like a part of you. It's part of your identity is your autism.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Before we
wanted
started,
to.
oh,
Sorry, shall I go?
yep. Before we started recording, you wanted to title the episode "Autism is not your superpower," and I'm gonna
Yeah.
I'll honor that. But like what you said just now about like embracing it versus conquering it.
Mm.
That just immediately brought that to mind. Would you be able to like expand on like what that idea of embracing it means versus your idea of conquering your autism?
Yeah. Well, I think when people talk about embracing your autism, I've always thought they're seen as, because at the end of the day, it's, people that there's it's called a disorder, which, I mean, I prefer to use the word condition instead of a disorder or another, a disability, because it's a bit derogative in my opinion, but it's still, there's a reason why it's known as that. It's because, people have certain struggles. A lot of them struggle with, I mean, more commonly, socializing, feeling as if they, that feeling of acceptance, or feeling, very different and a bit weird compared to other, neurotypical individuals. And so I think because of, when I hear that, I think if I embrace my autism, I'm embracing, meant to embrace those things that I'm struggling with. And so I kind of, when I got older, I got that mindset of the idea of conquering it means I'm doing those things that are meant to be difficult, which I would, if I socialize, if I put myself out there, it's kind of, for me, I've always seen that as saying no to autism, and more so, uh, saying yes to the idea of being able to do those things that apparently neurotypicals are more easily able to, I guess, achieve. And so, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, well
So
said. Go on,
yeah.
Dash.
So I was just gonna ask. So yeah, speaking on that, like I guess, like from my perspective, it would have, like, would you say it would have gotten like more challenging, like as you sort of got older to like handle this, or was it less challenging? Like I guess as you got a bit more wiser and sort of experience as well, like came into play. Like yeah, like would you be able to talk like a little bit about like your old years, like maybe even like now, like after high school, and like now that you're in the adult world, like sort of you know like has your perspective on conquering it versus embracing it changed in that way? Like do you feel like you're doing that? Like you know what I
Oh,
mean?
yeah, yeah. I feel I've still sort of have that idea of conquering it, especially, yeah, since finishing high school. I feel in a way it feels like I have taken a bit of a step back, going into the real world, because at the moment I'm still sort of struggling to know what I really want to do. And well, in this case, even because as Catholics, you also have, it's not just about, say, a full time career. It's about about vocations and stuff. But
Mm.
that that's been, I've sort of been, because I last Christmas I started a new job, which is all the way in the city, and that was I've overestimated how big of a jump that really was for me, to be out of high school and then doing this, traveling all the way to the city to do work. And that, I remember the first, when they had the orientation, I had a bit of a meltdown. I think it wasn't out loud.
Mm.
I was just, tears came up really quickly, and I was feeling super anxious.
Bit of a shock.
And yeah, it was a bit of a, shock. It's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Because it was just this big, it was this big change.
Mm-mm. Yeah, yeah, I think, I don't know, it's like even like culture is like super interesting. Like for me, like coming out of high school, it was, like my first priority was always like, what am I gonna like, I don't know, like I didn't personally have a huge like Catholic perspective when I left high school, so it's really interesting that you like bring up like thinking about like vocations and stuff as well. Like my first like priority was like, okay, I'm out of like high school now. What am I gonna study next? Like, what am I gonna do with my life? But like the fact that you were like already thinking about your vocation, I think already speaks volumes about your faith as well. So that's really cool, I think.
Mm. Yeah. Like
But yeah, I can, go on, Charlie.
I was just gonna say, like, that jump into the real world is difficult enough even for
Mm,
neurotypical people, you know?
yeah, yeah,
Like, it's a heck of an adjustment.
yeah.
So, like, yeah, to go, like, deep end like that. And, like, to go
Mm,
straight into a job, too. Like, going
yeah,
into
yeah,
uni is completely different to just going straight into professional
yeah.
work. So, like,
Especially a job that demanding, like going into the city. Like how often were you working, Joe? Like you're working at least 3 or 4 days a week, right?
Yeah, I did 3 days a week, but the shifts was it was super early, 7 in the morning, and because I'm all the way in
You
like the
live in
countryside.
oh, brutal.
Yeah,
yeah,
Yeah.
like, heck of a deep end experience, man. Like,
Mm,
honestly, I'm impressed. Like,
yeah.
your that ethic of yours of like trying to push yourself out of that comfort zone is honestly inspiring to me. So,
Mm, agreed.
um, all that to say, like, don't. Hopefully, you're not like too hard on yourself
You're
these
doing a
days.
great job, basically.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, you're doing a fantastic job, I think. Like it can seem daunting, but yeah, it seems like you're doing really good. And I'm assuming this is all sort of like led into like you becoming like you had mentioned that you've recently become like a qualified support worker as well. I assume that sort of all contributed in you wanting to help other people. Like, can you tell us a little bit about that?
well, yeah, it certainly did. Part of it was because I'm under NDIS now. I have a support worker myself, and even when I was at school, I always liked the idea of sort of being a support worker, particularly for maybe adolescents, and
Mm-hmm.
because I would especially love to if I can help say other particular kids say with on the spectrum
Mm,
to sort of I guess be that sort of person that can sort of just support them in the way they need to be. If
yeah.
just because sometimes, mate, I feel all that takes is that little bit is just to sort of help that person in their struggle that has that sort of struggle to give them
Yeah.
maybe even the belief that they are the belief that they are honestly a lot better and than they
Mm,
probably make themselves out to be.
yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
100%. And sorry, I probably should have asked this at the start. Can you tell us a little bit more about like what a support worker actually does, like for these people, like how they like help them out? Because I know you've had one you said for a little while now, and even like you did the run with us, and I think that was no wait, sorry, I'm thinking of something else. You did do the run with us, but like that
Yep.
wasn't like a support worker that was like helping
yeah,
you out with that. That was something
yeah,
different, right? That was like
Yeah.
physio. That was
yeah. That
That
was
was,
personal
yeah.
PT.
training.
Yep.
That
Yeah,
Anyway,
was
you
sorry.
did smoke us in the 10K. You absolutely
yeah, you did.
wrecked me.
I got pretty good
But
training
yeah,
there.
okay. Yeah, legit. But yeah, maybe like yeah, I guess that shows it. I need to know what a support worker is. Like, can you tell us a bit about what like a support worker does to like help these people?
Yeah,
Help you?
they they help them with their particular needs. Say one person they have on their profile they need that could be some 90-year-old woman wants to visit her husband at an aged care and she needs a driver. So you as your job is to just drive her there so she can visit her husband. Or if it could be some young kid wants someone to do activities with them. Maybe they enjoy tennis. So you take them out to say the tennis court, and that's what you would do. You would for as many hours as it says on their profile, however many hours they need, you're sort of you support with, and yeah, in this case, probably play a bit of tennis with them. And I'm sort of looking more to do activity. I'm looking more for those people that want activities, someone to do activities with, and I'm very much willing to drive a lot too because I have the qualification luckily, or else I probably wouldn't be able to if I didn't. But yeah, it's basically it's adhering to their needs, whatever sort of need they want they need support with.
Yeah, that
I
makes
don't know if
sense.
that explained it a bit, but yeah.
Yeah, no, that was good.
Yeah. So do you have a specific like clientele you have in mind, or is it like our support work is only for people who are neurodivergent, or are they just for like anyone with any sort of what's the like not disability? What's the nice? I don't know. But like you mentioned, elderly people. Like I'm
Like
assuming
someone
that's
that's
just
held back in
Sort
some
of.
way, I suppose.
Yeah,
Like whether
it's
it's like
anyone.
elderly.
Yeah,
Mm.
basically anyone who with any sort of need. It doesn't have to be neurodivergent.
hmm. And so you're going for more of like a generalist support work role, or do you have a specific group of people in mind?
I would say more so targeting younger individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Or probably teens, or even a few even kids that are still in primary school. But that's more so the sort of age group that I want to work with more so. But I'm still open. I'm open to elderly people.
Mm.
So on the topic of teens and youth, like you've been a massive help to us in the youth ministry, and you joined this year, right? Started this year. You became a core leader.
Yep.
Yep. How's that been? What was that like?
Um. Well, there's definitely been, for me, there's been that sort of, it's been, you could say there's pressure, but it's sort of that good pressure of how can I sort of help these teens become, sort of be close to God to the best that I can. I'm hoping that, I've enjoyed, it's been nice work. It's been nice sort of, spending time when you spend time with the teens, and because a lot of times they have their own knowledge that they provide to you, but there's been a lot of times I question how useful I've actually am at the sessions, but it's it still is, because at the start it was a bit new, because there was definitely more pressure. How am I going to be an effective core leader for these teams? But I think as the years gone on, as the year has gone on, I think I've become a lot more eased into it, and
Mm.
I've and and yeah, it's been good work. It's been nice trying to be that sort of role model for these
Mm.
teams, because
Yeah.
got yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. No, I mean, I was gonna say, I think you're doing a fantastic job, and I think
Agreed.
like a part of that would stem from like I would say you probably have. I think most of our core leaders were a part of Life Teen. I was when I was younger, but I mainly came back to Life Teen after high school when I became a core leader. So I was gonna say like I think Charlie was pretty much the same, and like
Not
after high school,
exactly. Like I was never in Life Teen when I was young, so I kind of just got like deep ended. Like I joined.
isn't like I don't really count like the younger years. Like I was there, but like I don't really remember too much of it. It was like early high school. So, like
Ah, right. Yeah. Yeah.
my big experience comes from like after like high school joining.
Yep.
But yeah, I guess like you would have an advantage in that sense that like you were a teen like up until last year, and like I think a lot of the suggestions and like a lot of the cool. Let's just follow shit off.
Hey,
Yep.
good job.
Alrighty. 3, 2, 1. Oopsie daisy. We're having a bit of technical difficulties, and now I've completely lost track of the convo. What were we talking about?
I think I'll finish off my thought. Basically, I think I was last talking about how like the advantage Joe has is like you came from being a teen last year to now being a core leader this year. So like you had that experience of like being a young adult already. So like you're able to relate to the teens really well. And I think like the suggestions and like a lot of the impact that you've had as a leader has like really resonated with that. Like you've like suggested things and brought things in that you wanted as a teen, and I think the teens have really appreciated having that perspective as well.
Um,
That's been my perspective.
Thanks for that. You'd probably have to give me an example of an idea though that I brought up, because can't quite remember. But
I mean, like it's not even like particularly something like you brought up, but like for example, whenever we talk about like spending time with like Jesus, whether it's like adoration or something, like you're definitely like one of the first people to be like, yes, like let's do this. You know, how can we incorporate like adoration and things like that into like our life notes and stuff. Like you definitely like support that kind of thing because I'm assuming because you like came from being a teen to that. Like, I would assume, like, as a teen, you would have really valued those experiences, and now, like, you want to pass that on. Am I correct in assuming that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like I've been watching you this past year as well, and like I've seen you grow. I've seen you definitely like get better and better.
Yeah.
It's like definitely keep at it is my obvious advice. Speaking of the youth ministry, I wanted to ask, we missed uploading last week because we went on our retreat. At the time of recording, we just came back from our retreat yesterday, the weekend retreat. So what was that like for you, Joe? Like, this is your first retreat as a leader, and it's a lot different to, a retreat as a teen, because the teens get to go and have fun in the games room. The leaders do not.
Yeah, honestly, I thought it was a really good experience. It was definitely it was fun, honestly, to just drive to drive them up to the location. And but even whilst we're there, sort of having all the sort of planning. It was good to be there to sort of see how each session is planned. And but yeah, the teens were honestly just it was good. It was so good seeing them participate so well.
Let's finish it off.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Finish your thought. All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
I think, Joe, you were finishing your thought.
Yeah, I know I was saying, yeah, when you see the teens especially participate in the sessions, that it's sort of it make you feel like you're doing your role well as a leader. And for all the leaders, because they're they gain something. And especially when you lead the small talks, when when you hearing them give their thoughts, their perspective on each question. And then
Yeah.
it's just it's really good to hear. And just, they're very learning something from them. That's getting something from them as a leader is probably more. It's probably more than them getting something out of us. That's, I feel, yeah. If a lot of
Like,
the
it says something when you're learning from this teenager.
yeah, when
Yeah.
they and especially when they're comfortable enough to explain, to give you their perspective on things.
Yeah. Lots more fun. Like, yeah, I can definitely relate with that. Like, yeah, some of these teens are super knowledgeable, and yeah, it's pretty inspirational that, like, at a young age, like, they're so devout and, like, they have all this knowledge. It's pretty cool.
You don't have to tell us, Joe. I know I said we'll finish up soon, but just one last thought. So in our retreats, we have this thing called affirmation books. For those of you listening and who aren't, you haven't been to a Life Teen retreat. So we have affirmation books, and it's basically like a book assigned to each person, and everyone attending the retreat gets to write nice messages in these books. What was it like opening that book as a leader and seeing like how the teens appreciate your leadership?
It was, yeah, it was very it was moving, to know that some of these people, some of these teens saying how they look up to you and how they appreciate what you did for them, what you've brought to the team. And it definitely gives you that belief that you can achieve, if you you can lead well. And if you and to and if you if they really do feel that way, then that's just more of a reason to keep leading them.
Mm.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, we'll wrap it up here because the technical issues are getting ridiculous. Really sorry about that. That's a rough day.
Wait, can I ask one more question for Joe before we wrap up?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yep.
What's next for you? Like, I feel like we ask all of our guests like this, like, but like, Yeah, like what's next for you? Like what are your aspirations for the future, if you don't mind sharing? Like, like do you like, want to keep progressing with like life team, like being a core leader, like, sort of work wise, like what's next for you? Where do you see yourself? Where do you see yourself at the end of next year? Let's make that the question.
Well, hopefully having a good amount of clients for one as a support worker, but yeah,
Mhm.
I'd like to, yeah, I'd like to keep leading that, keep being a leader next year, and maybe even consider going into a seminary.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
It's just
That's
I've
big.
heard it's from a lot of vocations. I've heard if you, like they say, if you, even if it's not for you, at least if you go in there and if you enter something like see if the priest is for you, then at least
Mm.
you get an answer whether you're called to it or not.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I
Enough.
feel
no,
like it's something
that's good.
I should something I feel like I think I got out of the retreat, honestly, especially when going to confession. It's something I should think about more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Big prayers coming your way then. That's a
Yeah,
big yeah, call to make.
yeah. Speaking of prayers, we'll wrap up with prayer intentions. So yeah, obviously, like pray for Joe. He's got big plans on the horizon. Uh, pray for his vocation. Pray that he keeps on keeping on and being uh, the cool Chad conqueror that he is.
Mhm.
You're up, Desh.
Yeah. Um, I guess I'll take the bog standard today. So,
Oh, yeah.
as always, I think at the end of every podcast, we like to pray for an end to all the conflicts going on around the world. So, Israel, Palestine, yeah, the war in Ukraine, those are all still going, but also like there's persecution of Christians around the world. It's not like talked about in the media, but it's happening, especially in places like Congo. Um, I don't quite remember the other places, but it's definitely happening even if we don't know it. So yeah, pray for everyone suffering in a conflict around the world that comes to an end. Yeah, and as Charlie said, pray for Joe. Um, it's not easy. Like Joe's basically told us how his experience has been unique. Like it hasn't been, what your standard um like young adult experiences coming out of high school. Like it's a different experience for him, but I think Joe's tackled it really well. He's made the most of it. He's made the most of who he is. He seems to be doing a really good job in conquering. I guess we pray that he's able to continue to do that, modeling after Saint Joseph. I think it's safe to say he's named after.
Yeah, I love
Yeah,
sharing that.
Yeah, well
yeah,
said. Uh,
yeah.
Definitely.
you're up, Joe. Any prayer intentions?
Yeah, I'll definitely pray for you two, Desh and Charlie. You two are, you two are very inspirational as well. That's what I forgot to bring up. And you're definitely doing God's work with this podcast. And yeah, and also pray for all our teams and leaders at Life Team. They keep that while teams keep showing up, and hopefully always getting something out of all of it. And the yeah, all our leaders keep being the good inspirational people that they are, and all our friends and family, especially those that aren't really part of the faith. And I guess I'll also pray for other all those people, those neurodivergents, and just anyone who has those sort of struggles with, I don't know, those struggles particularly, sort of thing in, and hopefully hopefully they sort of particularly find that they realize that their identity is as a child of God, and not this, they don't have to see this whatever condition they have as their, identity. Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah,
Couldn't have put it
very
better
well
myself.
said. Yeah, and on that note, we will wrap it up here. Thanks so much for listening, guys. If you liked what you heard, you know what to do. Do all the things: like, comment, subscribe, review, so on and so forth. If you didn't, review, comment, send us an email, chadsbychrist@gmail.com. Get on our Discord. Pretty sure that link is still working. And if it's not, email us.
Yeah.
Regardless, pray for us, and we hope to catch you in the next one. God bless.
Yeah. God bless, guys. Thanks again for coming, Joe.
Yeah, thanks so much,
Yes.
Joe. Catch you.